Hey there, honey bunnies. It's episode 23, Your Body as Transmitter. This is a Sovereign Storytellers podcast with your host, who has a raspy voice, Michelle Wolf. I'm supposed to be at work today, but it's raining, and it looks like it's going to rain all day, and I work outside part-time, so I am happy about that. My little part-time job is perfectly fine, but a rainy day at home, quiet. I missed the podcast last week because of the schedule. Chance to just sit and record. Because it's raining, the sound quality might be a little bit off because I'm just using my phone. Anyway, enough about me. I've wanted to talk a couple of weeks, about 3 weeks, about your body as a transmitter. So we all know law of attraction. There's a lot, and I've talked a lot too, there's a lot out there now about emotions being addictive, which I totally agree with. And there's all these, what you radiate. There's a lot of language, I guess. And for about a month or two, maybe two even, I've been exploring, what do we do without language? So much language distances us from our body, from our emotions. So we're never going to break free and have a different emotional experience on a daily basis until we are aware. And yet all the talking about it keeps us out of the sensation. I had an experience this week of trying to communicate to someone else. Oh my. There's a little side music for you. My alarm went off. Trying to communicate that I was wanting to express an emotion and be witnessed in the emotion before moving on to something else. And it was very difficult for me. I wasn't able to find the words. That's the paradox, right? We want to express the emotion, and it's helpful to be witnessed in it, but it's hard to be witnessed in it when you can't, describe what's happening. So anyway, that's another, maybe we'll do a podcast on that next time, but it's part of this body as a transmitter. So what you speak about, what emotion you're allowing in your body, that's the signal you're sending out. Oh, that's where I got sidetracked. So law of attraction stuff says, it's all this talking about, well, what you put out, you get back. What you speak about, you create. What you think about, you create. But it's all, the discussion is up in the head when it's your body that's transmitting the signal. So your head might create the target for the signal, or describe the signal, or define the signal. Let's put it that way. So your mind defines the signal, hopefully in collaboration with what your heart wants. But often it starts in just our mind. I want, my goal lately is $5,000 a month income. However that happens, a combination of things, whatever it is, that's my goal. And that's a mind goal. Hopefully I feel like it's been done in collaboration with my heart. But then the next step after that is I have to generate that feeling in my body. My body is a walking cell phone tower. My body is a walking transmitter of what I've defined that I want. So if the universe speaks to us through symbolism and energy and emotion, energy being emotion is just energy. So we have access to all these energetic streams, all the different currents in the river. Every river has a different temperature and flow. Even in the same section of a river, at the top it's different than at the bottom. It's different on the sides. If the cosmic soup that we all live in, if you think of it that way, we get to pick which current of the river we want to swim in. And then once we pick that, we've got to radiate that. And for some reason, it was just a few months ago that it clicked in my head that, oh, that's great that I've got it all mapped out and defined in my head. But my body is still radiating depression. My body's still radiating the familiar bad feeling, that because my brain is so used to producing that based on the thoughts that I'm so used to thinking, that my brain's reticular activating system, which if you want more about that, go see Dana Wilde at trainyourbrainu.com, letter U, trainyourbrainletteru.com. My system, my brain, my RAS is geared to look for the things that make me feel bad, because bad is familiar and brain wants familiar. And so my body is always radiating that. I told someone, or maybe several people, that I felt like once I realized this a few months ago, that I was like Pigpen on the Peanuts character Pigpen. Do you remember Pigpen? He was always like running around. He's always dirty, and he's got like this cloud of dust and debris floating around him. And that's the image I got. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm trying so hard to create these other things. But if I could see my aura visually, it's like a little Pigpen with all this bad stuff in it. Bad relative, I don't believe in good or bad, but for the purposes of our discussion, this bad stuff floating around in my aura, my energetic space. So then the process started of trying to shift that, and that's when the fight started. My brain was like, what in the hell do you think you're up to, lady? This is not the script. This familiar bad feeling place, that's the script. That's what we do. That keeps us safe. That's familiar. Let's just stay home. Let's just stay in our lane. Our familiar, bad, horrible lane. And drive our body car. But our body car has to generate the feeling of calm and peace. So when I meditate, and I do meditate every day, and I've extended that to an hour a day, which has been highly enlightening. If there's any way that you can do that even a few days a week, I highly encourage you to try to sit for an hour a day. There's another level after that 20 or 30 minutes that you can slip into that is like opening a door to a whole nother stack of information and experience. But that increased meditation time has really let me see and be aware of how it happens. This is the key that I really want to express to you. If you want something different, you've got to define something different, and then you've got to generate that feeling in your body first. You don't get to have the thing and then have the feeling. Until you have the feeling, you won't have the thing. Or if you get the thing, you won't be able to maintain it. And honestly, more than half the time when we get the thing, it wasn't really the thing we wanted all along, right? We all know that. Yes. You know that by now, that you're really just seeking that sense of happiness and stability and calm and all is right with the world, that kind of feeling, that you think the thing is going to get you. And also the rent, the mortgage needs to be paid, and groceries needs to be bought, and 6 cats need to be fed, and 2 dogs want their canned food. There's all those things too. It's that balancing act. But so it's got to be generated through the body. So if you're always living up in your head, guess what? It's not going to work. You're going to think the affirmations. You're going to think the goal setting. You're going to think the analysis of your history. You're going to think it all through, and it's going to be, this is the best laid plans of mice and men, right? We plan it all out in our head, completely ignoring the fact that our body has to be the one that radiates the signal. The cell phone towers are programmed, to each particular company's signal. We have to program our radiant being with the signal that we want to send out. So you can think yourself happy all day long, but if happiness isn't activated in your physical tissues, it's not going to happen. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a struggle. It's going to be clunky, because the part of you that does the, picks up, sends out the call to the universe is offline. It's not connected. But what that means is, like, everything's something else, right? Every piece that you get opens a whole nother can of worms. So if you have to get in your body, then you have to deal with and get through why you exited your body in the first place. How come you're not living in your body right now? All right. So then you're like, oh God, I've got to get in my body to radiate the signal, to send the message that I would prefer something different than what I have. And I want to change the chemistry in my brain, which is going to take some practice and some time on a daily basis. And holy shit, I left my body a long time ago. And I've known this, and you know this too, probably. So how do you get back in there? Because as soon as you start to get back in there, you feel the discomfort of being aware that you have a body. And we talk all the time about, I'm in my body, I'm out of my body. Of course, you're still here all the time. If you were really out of your body, you'd be dead. So we wouldn't be having this conversation. But what we mean by that is our awareness. We can turn our awareness on and off. That's the gift and the curse that we have in this existence. We can be aware of joy, or we can be aware of sadness. We can be aware of ourselves inside a body, wearing a body, feeling emotions, or we can entertain ourselves with thoughts and conversations and things in our head. So when we're saying in and out of the body, what we're really talking about is becoming aware of the sensations in running through the nervous system of your body when you have a thought and then a feeling. That's what we resist. And in fact, a lot of my coaching is spent giving people doing skill building with people to stay with that sensation that emotions activate in your physical body. If you're tuned out and you're just in your familiar bad feeling place all the time, even though you might be thinking other things, you're not aware of how it feels in your body. And you won't be aware of how it feels in your body until you spend enough time over in the other state so that when you come back to familiar bad feeling, you feel the difference. You're aware of the shift. You're aware of the rush of chemicals because you've spent enough time over there meditating that you can feel it as it happens. So I don't drink alcohol because I don't like the rush of the feeling through my muscles that alcohol creates. I hate that sensation. So I very rarely drink. Every now and then, a glass of champagne, if it's at, some celebratory thing or whatever. I don't like it. So I'll take a few sips and I try to stop even before I get that rush of chemical feeling, which most people are seeking, right? Most people are like, oh yeah, I love that feeling. I'm like, oh no, that feeling is gross. Well, the other day I had spent enough time away from sugar and then had some sugar, not some, like a lot, had a lot of sugar. And I felt that chemical rush, just like when I take a drink of alcohol or have a drink of alcohol, like, a glass of wine or whatever. That rush went through my body and I was like, oh my God, this is what happens every time. But I've had enough time away from sugar and I'm more in tune with my body now so that I was aware of the difference of how I felt before and then how I felt 5 minutes after ingesting a lot of Cadbury mini eggs, which were made by the devil. let me just say. They are the bane of my existence around Easter season, Cadbury mini eggs. Ugh. Anyway, so it's the same thing. You've got to meditate long enough and generate the feeling that you're going for long enough. And you don't have to be perfect at it. You just have to give yourself a few minutes practice a day so that then when you slip back over into anger or martyrdom or whatever your familiar bad feeling place is, then you feel the difference, and then you are like, oh my God, this is how I've lived for decades. Hopefully for you it's not decades, but for a lot of us it is. It's decades. We exited our body during trauma as kids and we never really came back to it. And the longer we were out of it, the less we were capable. We lost the skill to tolerate the emotion in our body. So my first tagline was, when I started this coaching thing, was raising your happiness threshold. And I didn't realize it at the time, but that involves a whole lot more body work than I ever imagined. Until this last couple of years, I guess. When I was in magic school, I realized I hadn't been aware of my body in a really long time. And so then I started moving back in a little at a time. But for me, when I feel happy, and I became aware of that this week because I'm working in Created Life Academy with Sandy Amorim. Always mess up her name. I need to go back and listen to how she pronounces it. Sorry, Sandy. But I was like, I had a moment during one of those hour-long meditations of looking at, because we're developing our goals for a year. And I was like, I don't feel happy. I actually can't remember the last time I felt happy longer than just a few minutes at a time before I tried to change it. The last clear memory I have of happiness, of just being happy as just a happy little bee, was when I was 3 years old. And I remember swinging between my aunt and uncle's hands. I remember the dress I was wearing. I remember I didn't have any shoes on because it was in Texas. And we were going into the house and I was between them. You know how little kids pick their feet up and then you swing them between you? I have a very crystal clear memory of that. And I've had that memory for a very long time. And I use it as a touchstone. When I'm trying to generate happiness, I will go back to that memory and try to recreate it. So then I realize every time I've been happy as an adult or even in the last few years, it's just fleeting. I'm happy and then immediately my mind is analyzing it and thinking, oh, it would be better if this, or I wish this wasn't, like editing the scene. Oh, if the temperature was only 2 degrees cooler, or if the mosquitoes would go away, or if, my nose wasn't itching, because most of my happy times are outside. But me and the environment are still in a battle with allergies. But you know what I mean? Like, we won't let ourselves be happy for very long before we start trying to edit the scene, which immediately kills the happiness. And a lot of times we're doing that because happiness feels abnormal in our body. Excuse me for the throat thing, speaking of allergies. I apologize for the throat clearing. So how do you feel that in your body? If you're trying to be happy, if happiness is one of your goals, but you're not even aware of how happiness feels. I'm coughing. I stop coughing. Here goes a cat coughing up a hairball. Oh, the joys of podcasting. I'm a lazy podcaster, so I won't go back and edit the sound. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. So how do you do it? Like, how do you, as you're listening to this, what is the feeling that you run from? Maybe you run from the sensation of sadness in your body, Whereas I run from the feeling of happiness, just letting myself be happy with no thought. Like that's super uncomfortable still. And that's my training process out of depression is I have to let myself be happy long enough that my brain goes, oh, I guess we're going to be happy now, and starts to produce a different chemical cocktail to flood through my body. And that takes a lot of practice. And that's how you do it. Like whatever emotion that you're like, oh no, I'm not feeling that one. I'm going to go drink, eat, Netflix, binge on whatever your show is, over-exercise, just tune out completely, go to sleep, medicate, smoke too much pot, do whatever people do. Do whatever you do to shut your feeling down. So the way out of that is first step awareness. Always, always I will come back to telling you you need a daily practice of meditation. And I used to say that, if you can't sit and meditate 15 minutes, then do something different, use music, use guided meditation. And I'll still say that, but I'm going to add to that. Your goal, in my opinion, really needs to be getting to that 15 minutes of silence. I think using chanting and oming or whatever as a tool to get started is great. If that's what it takes for you to get started, do it. Because then you're at least training yourself to be there for 15 minutes doing something internal. But there is something in the silence, in the quiet, that is transformative, but it takes time, it takes patience, it takes dealing with the boredom of sitting there, it takes listening to the voice that says you could be doing something different. But do you see how that is such a gift? There is literally nothing stopping you from sitting still in quiet for 15 minutes. There's literally nothing stopping you from doing that except that voice in your head, which is why you should be sitting there in 15 minutes of silence. So you can hear that voice in your head long enough to get some distance and go, oh, I see who's been driving the bus around here. Huh. Maybe I want to do things a little bit different. And every day that you sit in that silence and you get familiar with that voice, you start to hear how it does its job of keeping you safe. You don't need to get rid of it. You can't get rid of it anyway. And I'm all about shadow work, and we don't cut off parts of ourselves or try to crush or get rid of anything. You incorporate it and integrate it and do something with it. So your brain's just doing the thing. That's okay. But you can let it chatter while you come up alongside it and choose something different. So then it's just a matter of titration. Just like getting in a cold swimming pool, you let yourself feel happy just a few minutes. And for some of us, it feels super uncomfortable, like in your legs. So for me, it felt like my legs were like I had ants in my pants, just itchy. Like the energy I would become aware of the energy of being fully in my body, and it would make my legs and feet and everything just feel so weird, like pins and needles, that I really couldn't tolerate it for very long. And then my friend Sarah Ballard recommended shaking. So I just stand up and shake when I'm trying to move into more presence in my body and it gets irritable feeling. I don't like it. I'll stand up and just shake all over, just like belly dancing, just shake every part of your body. And it helps a lot. It helps move that energy. It helps ease the tension in your nervous system. All that's happening is you created happiness and your brain is pumping out something different than what you're used to. And your body is like, whoa, 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 what's going on around here? It doesn't mean you should stop doing it. It means you should keep doing it until you get used to it, till that becomes your new normal and you're allowed to be happy for longer than 30 seconds at a time, which means now your body's radiating happiness, which guess what? Brings you external stuff that matches your happiness. You can't think your way out of this. You can't say enough affirmations to change your world. And if you've been saying affirmations for 40 years and it's not working, chances are your body's offline. Your body is the transmitter. You choose how you want to feel. You do what it takes to feel that way for as long as you can, several times a day, at least once a day. You develop more and more sensitive awareness about when you're in your body and when you're not, when you're present with your physical self and when you're absent, so that you can keep choosing it. You catch it and you choose again. You catch it and you choose again. That's how it's like addiction. You catch the urge to go numb, you choose again. And every time you choose again differently and go toward, Abraham Hicks says pivot, Corey Michelle uses the word pivot a lot, you just shift over. I'll do the 3 breaths. 360 to turn 180, 3 breaths, 60 seconds, turn yourself 180 degrees around from where you were. Every time you do that, you strengthen building the preference toward happiness and joy and calm over whatever familiar bad feeling place that you're choosing to not dwell in. You're choosing to dwell somewhere else. Let's dwell in possibility. Thank you, Emily. Let's move into curiosity rather than condemnation. Let's move over into compassion over criticism. Let's take a breath and go home. Our body, for the time that we're on this planet, is our home, and we're always outside of it screaming and yelling to feel better when all we got to do is turn around and go home. A lot of loneliness is your body's loneliness. Your body it has a consciousness of its own that you will become aware of when you take the time to do it and you make yourself sit your butt down in silence and start to listen for the symbol. It communicates in symbol and sensation. If you're not quiet long enough, you'll miss it. It's so subtle. It's these soft little flickers. You can call it intuition, whatever. It doesn't matter. The tendency to want to define it. Well, what is that sensation? That's a mind thing, right? And that's how we stay separate. We don't need to do that anymore. We need to go home. That's what the trees have been saying. That's what the plants have been saying. The trees model that for us. That's what came through in Forest Reiki, which of course you can read about on the website. On my website, thatmichellewolf.com, 2 L's, 2 F's. There you go. That's my mini advertisement. The image I kept seeing over and over and over was humans in the root ball of trees. Like, come home. Take shelter from the storm. Get back home. Go back home. You are lost, little children. Go home. And the breadcrumbs to find your way home are these little soft flickers of emotion, a little wave of sadness, a little wave of joy, a little wave of loneliness, a little glimmer, a little splash of yearning. Your heart like thumping and aching for something. Sometimes that your heart is thumping and aching just for your attention. The other day I was trying to be witnessed, and what was happening outside of me was a perfect, beautiful mirror of the exact thing that happens inside of me. I'm trying to be witnessed, and I'm not listening. My emotions are trying to be witnessed and attended to, while my mind is yada, yada, yada about something else. Or trying to define it like a scientist, like a mad scientist, trying to break it all apart. What about this part and that part? And let's put some labels on it. No, your body just says, come home and just feel. Just sit down and frickin' feel something. And it's difficult. When you've been unaware for a very long time, it's difficult to do. But if you want your external circumstances to look different, You have to radiate a different signal. You cannot radiate a different signal if you're disconnected from your body. Your body is the transmitter. Your body is the direct line to communicating with the cosmic soup, with the quantum field, the unified field, all that is, whatever name you want to slap on that. You can't get the message through if your body's not radiating what you want right now. You have to find a way to get used to the feeling of wealth, of love, of success, of attention, whatever it is you want. You've got to figure out a way to feel it right now, get used to it right now, make it your normal state of being regardless of what's happening outside of you. To get your message out to the universe, it's got to be through the body. Your body cannot tolerate your criticism. Your body cannot tolerate your contempt. If you look down at your thighs and you feel contempt, that's where you start your work. That's where you dive right in and go, oh, honey. Oh, honey bunny, where is this coming from? Come here to mama. Let's figure this out. Let's look at why that thought thinks it needs to be there. Let's look at why I think I need to look at my body and say terrible things. Let's just take a look at that. Let's get curious. Let's sweep all the parts up in our loving arms and hold them and listen to them and get used to the discomfort of being physical. And you might feel it if you're flowing with me here in this flow state. You might feel it how when you're in that state, you don't give a flying fuck about your bank account. Ooh, I said the word. I'm going to have to mark my podcast. Oh, you don't care. You don't care if you have any money. You don't care what size you are. You don't care if anybody else is there to share the moment with you. You don't care if there's dirty dishes in the sink. You don't care because that is nothing. That's nothing. What they think of you, what they say to you, what your numbers say, what your number is, whoever's calling on the phone. None of it matters. Nothing. All that matters is that you're suddenly in communion with your physical body, and for once in your life, maybe, you're being heard. You're being witnessed. That's the understanding that we tend to seek outside of ourselves. It's right there in your belly, right there in your heart, just waiting for you to come home. In that space, can you imagine the signal that your body is now transmitting to the universe, that the universe then can ripple back to you? Joy, calm, peace, compassion, acceptance. There's no judgment in this space. None. All are allowed at the table. The cranky parts, the gossipy parts, the critical parts, the happy parts, the silly parts, all are welcome at this table when you make the space. Take a deep breath and just breathe that in. When is the last time you let yourself go home? Could you let yourself right in this minute just come home? Play with that. think less, feel more. And I will talk to you again next week. And of course, here's the business bit that I left out at the beginning. You can go to the website, thatmichellewolf.com, if you want help with this. I have openings in my one-on-one coaching. There's clarity sessions available to you. Forest Reiki is available to you. And the group coming up, Humility for Healers, which is a lot about this, what we just have talked about. Opening that space to be a healer for others without getting involved, without tinkering, without carrying the load, all kinds of stuff. You can go to the website and check it out. You're capable of doing that. Okay, now I'll talk to you next week.